Hey guys, this is JJ, and today I have Greg with me, an expert, military retired, and a great buddy of mine. And he's an expert on communication, the wireless stuff, and many other stuff. He's actually a geek. Super, I would say he's the new 2021's MacGyver.
Uh,
And yeah,
no, I said I would call myself an expert, but I know a lot about the stuff we're going to talk about. So,
absolutely, an expert, absolutely, yeah. So, Greg, tell me about the when we were talking about the wireless stuff that you were talking about, the ham radio, and I know it's a it's kind of hobby for many people, but tell me something about why is it so important? But because I have heard that it's as important as learning as mathematics in a class. Why is it so beneficial to us? Why it can be so much beneficial in specifically these days?
well, the thing about amateur radio or ham radio, a lot of people call it ham radio, but it's actually amateur radio, and it's actually a service that is actually licensed
Hmm.
to people by the Federal Communication Commission or the FCC.
Hmm.
So you actually do have to take a test to
Hmm.
get the license. Um, but as you said, why is it so important? Well, one of the things is that amateur radio operators usually are there on the ground
Hmm.
providing communications when everything else fails. And one of the big things about ham radio, and one of the key, I'm trying to think of the word here, but one of the things they always say is that if all else fails, ham radio is there. So when you lose all your communications, your cell towers, your internet, and stuff like that, we provide that communication. Now, it's not as robust as
Hmm.
what you and I are used to right now. Like, for instance, we're using Skype right now and other software and computers to record this, but it's not quite as robust as that. But you can get communication and messages out. So,
Mm.
in emergencies, that is one of the biggest reasons why it is so important to have trained radio operators out there. And I say trained because you do actually maintain the training, and like I said, you have to take a test to get the license. So, but you have those volunteers out there to actually help in those situations.
Okay, that's great. But here's my question. Like learning about, I know there are like three type of licenses to get the ham radio license, right?
Yes.
And I would say it's a free cell phone or a free communication handheld device. I mean, to me, that's to my understanding. Does it make sense?
Yes. I see where you're going at right there. I wouldn't say it's free,
Mm-hmm.
but it does take a little bit more training to use
Mm-hmm.
a ham radio than it does you picking up a cell phone and just dialing a number and talking on it. It takes a little bit more skill set to actually do that. So thus you do need the training to do it.
And there are three licenses for that.
Yes, the three licenses. You start out, the very first license is the technician class.
Okay.
The technician class is basically your beginner's license. With that license, you have basically VHF, UHF, and very little HF privileges. Last I remember, I think it was 10 meters. You could get some privileges over there.
Mm-hmm.
The next step up the ladder is the general class license. The general class license gives you everything that you had in the technician class, plus you get a lot more HF frequencies. Now you don't get them all, but you get a lot of HF frequencies or high frequency frequencies. I should explain too. The VHF is very high frequency, UHF is ultra high frequency, and HF is high frequency. But and it's kind of, I'll explain that in a little bit if you want. But then your very high license, which I am right now, is an extra class license, and that basically gives you all the privileges of the amateur radio spectrum. So I'm able to actually use any frequency in amateur radio bands, the way they're set up for.
So Okay, so how about how tough is the basic license? Do you think it's easy for an average person having no technical knowledge to get into that and get certified, or it's pretty difficult to go
The
through?
basic license is actually the easiest one to get.
Oh,
It they have, okay, a lot of people don't know this, but the question pool is out there for people to actually study the questions and the
okay.
answers. You can go in and get those because it's run by the FCC, so they have to publish the questions and answers.
Hmm.
There are also study guides out there. The ARRL, which is the Amateur Radio Relay League, does a lot of good stuff, and they publish a lot of study guides and stuff like that. Not only study guides, but you can actually get into a ham radio club and talk to some of those guys, and they will mentor you. And when what we call a mentor in amateur radio is we call them an Elmer.
Elmer,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, an Elmer is basically a teacher for a student, and they're basically helping that student get his license.
Hmm.
But we call it an Elmer in ham radio.
Okay. So that's the easiest one. So how much does it cost? Like it's pretty expensive. You have to go to a training stuff. As you said, it's easy, like a question and answers. Like it's just free stuff online that you can get and just pass it through, or
Yes, there's a lot of free stuff out there, free resources. If you do a search for amateur radio, you can find all kinds of stuff out there for free to download and to study guide. Now, some of the study material does cost money. I mean, they do charge a fee because people actually sit down and write the programs for that, so they have to get compensated. Now, as far as the new license, now when I went through this, and I'm talking about this is almost 30 years ago for me when I first became an
oh,
amateur radio operator. Um, but when I first became an amateur radio operator, the license was free. You did not pay anything to the FCC to get
mm-hmm.
an amateur radio license. You did have to pay a fee to take the test because the amateur radio clubs would provide the tests for you, and so you would just pay them for their time to proctor the test and everything.
Hmm.
But other than that, it's pretty free now. Today, as I understand it, and I haven't really paid attention much to it, but I believe the FCC is now charging a license fee and a renewal fee. So when my license comes up for renewal, I'll actually end up having to pay to have my amateur radio license renewed.
They didn't have to go to again do some kind of no reassessment training or something like that. Nothing.
No, there's no. Once you become an amateur extra, you never ever have to really take that test ever again. Basically, you just, as long as you operate within the rules and regulations, which is the FCC rules and regulations are what they call Part 97. If you go and look at the Part 97 rules, that is the rules for amateur radio operation.
Okay. Tell me about, I have an experience with some of the guys. They try to communicate with the what is this called? The space station.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people do get hanging onto the people on there and in the space station, and they talk to them, and sometimes it's just whips away the signals, all this. Tell me something about that. What is that, and how? I mean, do the space station has this channel open for people to communicate, the ham radio experts, or people communicating directly to them? So I mean, with the Q&A, all that stuff, I've seen some videos doing that. What's that all about?
Well, what that is, it's called amateur radio on the space station. They actually do have amateur radios on, sponsored by the ARRL and AMSAT. AMSAT is the amateur satellite. What they do is they put up, and we actually do have our own satellites up there, believe it or not. Amateur radio satellites. Yes.
Oh wow. It's like a government supported, or it's like a
No, it's
private.
It's all run by amateur radio operators by donations and stuff like that. A lot of times they get a free ride on a rocket because if there's a space on a rocket whenever they launch it, and it meets all the the requirements to go on this rocket, it can be launched with it. That's how they save a lot of money doing this. They piggyback on other missions. Wow. But as far as the ISS, that is a manned platform, and they actually do have amateur radio on that. And a lot of times those are used for school contacts. They go and do what they call school contacts. Now, the ISS is moving over the Earth at a ridiculous amount of speed. It rotates around the Earth every 90 minutes.
It's so like 27,000 kilometers something.
Yes, and so the footprint, since it's a low Earth orbit, the footprint is not that very big. Okay. However, it will cover pretty much most of the United States. If it's flying directly over the middle of the United States, you can pretty much talk to it anywhere in the United States. So you have about a 10 minute window. You can actually talk to it from the time it comes up over the horizon, goes all the way over, and then to the other horizon. And you can talk to it for about 10 minutes. The problem with that is that you're competing with every other amateur radio operator in the United States. So, and it's very hard to get into it. I've done it a couple of times. Okay. And it takes a lot of patience to do it.
And have you ever had a chance to talk into the ISS?
Yes, I've done the ISS one time, and I've copied slow scan TV from the ISS. When they're not actually talking on it, they actually set the station up to do slow scan TV, which basically sends a still picture down to the ground, and it takes about between 30 seconds and 2 minutes for the transmission to come down and for it to decode and show a picture on the ground. Wow. But yeah, they do that when they're not actually talking. So I was actually able to copy some pictures because they point a camera out the window so you can actually see some of the stuff that they're seeing.
Oh, wow. That seems interesting. I think I have to go out of my window and do something now.